Hi, everyone. This is Jen Mark with Buzzcast podcast for the Ontario Athletic Therapists Association. May is Asian Heritage Month, and we think it's important to talk about how we can be supportive to our fellow athletic therapists. Joining me today is Paul Murata and Ruth Young. Paul is on the board with the OATA for Risk and Inclusion. He also works with the wheelchair basketball for the senior women's team on their way to Tokyo. Ruth is a youth hockey therapist and works out of MBS Fitness and Rehabilitation. She is also a TCM acupuncturist. Ruth works with 19 to 0, a nonprofit for COVID awareness and research. Welcome both.
Thank you.
It's a short talk. We want to really stay focused as athletic therapists. How can we support each other and how can we be aware of maybe what's happening around us? Paul, I want to start with you. Talk to me a little bit about what microaggressions are and how they can creep into conversation.
First, I think I have to kind of first say that and qualify myself or disqualify myself. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm just not every, I guess, Asian, but with a Japanese Canadian background, born in Canada. But the notion of this Western superiority, I feel, is really what roots these microaggressions, and then starts to get these myths like the model minority, Asian model minority, the Asian or yellow peril sort of myths out there that have these misconceptions like, I don't know, when you're in class and you do something right in your math class, oh wow, Asians are really good at math. You know, it could be like, wow, that was a compliment, but no, it's rooted on a myth, and it's a microaggression, and then multiple microaggressions turn into like have this macro effect, and it becomes weighing on Asians, and sometimes like Asians will start to themselves maybe believe in that, the microaggression, just because it happens so much, and it's like having that big lie. So I think that, when you become this certain clique or the Western superiority, or what do you want to call it, then anyone that goes against that kind of unspoken or unwritten word or rule is ostracized. And it might be in little tiny comments that are passive aggressive or direct, in terms of Asian hate, specific racism towards a person. So, but I think really the microaggressions, especially in the clinic and workplace, those are the most dangerous, because sometimes people do it, they don't do it maliciously and consciously to try to hurt that other person. It just maybe they aren't aware, of the historical content behind it, and then the negative effects that occur with it.
I think you're right, Paul. It's great to point out of just not being aware, of just not being maybe educated, or just not aware of what you're saying and how language matters to everybody, whatever what we're saying. Ruth, I'd like to get your opinion on this and how you feel.
I definitely agree with Paul. Just my background too. Like, I'm Chinese Canadian, also born here as well. And I totally resonate with everything that Paul's saying. I think because it's just so common in our culture almost now to have these microaggressions just embedded in the way that we just converse in day-to-day life. Like, I definitely, like, growing up too, you just hear like little comments here and there that aren't really okay, but because we're so used to them, we just brush them off, or we just accept them. We don't really make any comments of like, why would you say that kind of thing. And I think especially in the workplace, when it comes up, we're almost like afraid to make a comment because like we may lose a patient or something, but that doesn't make it okay. And I think especially being like an Asian female, it's like a double whammy for me. Like, I get a mix of like microaggressions, like a lot of comments too, especially are like, oh, your English is so great, or like, where are you actually from? It's like, I'm from here, I'm born here. Like, my English, of course, is great. But like, people automatically assume that I should have an accent, or that I'm not born here. And I think especially now because of COVID, it's almost worse. And it's not even just like passive comments anymore. It's just like looks that sometimes you get, like people like almost inadvertently like avoid you without actually, or they stare at you, especially at the beginning when they would see us out and about. It's like, why are you out? Kind of go back to where you came from. We don't want the virus from you guys. And I think that's almost made it worse. So it's like all the work we've almost done to try and make it normalized that we are here and that we're part of this culture now. Because of that, they're just like, no, you're no longer accepted here.
But about the comments about how you're so used to them, and do you say something, and when do you say something? How do we as fellow athletic therapists help support that? How do we, in talking to you, Ruth, when things like this come up, how can we help?
Depending on the situation, it varies. But I think a big thing is, like, if they're part of a conversation with us or close enough to hear, maybe just stepping in when they hear something like that, just being like, that's not okay, or like actually disagree with their comments. I think that would make a big difference by not allowing it to become a normalized part of our conversation anymore. Because essentially, if you just allow it to pass, it's saying that it's okay, right? And this just enables the behavior to continue. And another big thing is we work with athletes, right, as well. Like hearing them say that stuff, maybe in a locker room or passively as well, kind of just calling them out on it, just changing the culture and the language that we have in sport, so that eventually, like, yeah, it might be small little steps, but eventually it does make a difference.
Paul, I want you to speak to this as well, and what Ruth was just saying about changing the culture in sport and our language when we're in the locker room. And, sometimes that's a place that really can hurt because we're doing our job.
Right. Try to change the culture in terms of making, speaking out when it's heard. And it's not just, it's not really just put on the shoulders of the Asians that are being attacked. It's, being an ally. If you're a non-Asian, and you see that happening, you can say something as well and try to mention that, be an ally to that person that is being attacked, or set that question like, what do you mean by that, and make that person not to really attack them and make them feel like a counterattack or make them feel replaced, but just educate them so they know exactly what was being said and why it's hurtful and why it's not really accepted. You shouldn't do that. And they get and I understand what sometimes they'll get caught into their own thing if they don't say it. They're not being like part of their group, by the team mentality, maybe they're being weak or whatnot, and it just perpetuates. But somebody's got to step up. And what I don't, I think maybe, in terms of the language part, that's another thing. It doesn't resonate just with Asians. It's any culture. Like I feel like English does not equal, intelligence. It's a language. It doesn't mean that it doesn't equal your character or whatnot, your ability to speak the language. I mean, many of these people have they speak multiple languages, and they may have an accent, and that is uncomfortable to somebody else. And then, so they have to comment on that because that's the way that they deal with that uncomfortableness, that kind of their anxieties towards a little bit of ignorance. So being able to educate the major population and try to change the whole culture and have a safe place. So if you're working in the clinic or working with a team, make sure that there is a place that or something that's set so you can say something. How do you go about complaining about or bringing up these accusations or in a safe manner? Make sure that that's already in place and established so everybody knows. And you want to I want to speak out against that and say, hey, listen, I don't think this is really. Maybe I caught it out of context, but I still want to voice that and address it and make sure it wasn't. It's not going to turn into a big problem.
So to both of you, I think there's potentially some value there in talking to our coworkers, people in the clinic, people that we work with, maybe on whenever bigger events start to come back and we're all joining together, talking to our fellow ATs on, if this comes up, how do you want to be supported? If this, is there a value in that conversation?
And just knowing that, because AT is such a small community as well, and just knowing that they've got your back actually is really helpful. just even if they heard something in passing, like even coming up to us after and be like, no, I definitely don't agree with that. I'm sorry I didn't step in or something. It helps it's like they acknowledge that they know it wasn't right, and they are in, maybe not in that specific situation, but maybe in a different one, will actually call that person out or make a comment, and that makes like a difference.
Give that emotional support. Maybe they did not, take action at that time. But maybe next time they will. But and you may not do it the first time or the second time you see it, but give that emotional support. You'll empathize with that person that's being attacked, and then eventually maybe you will, have that you have that knowledge, and now you have that kind of confidence that, yeah, I want to stand up for this person.
I like how you both commented on how to be supported also is just to hold space for you, to know that that person is there for you, and whatever you need from your fellow ATs, that's what we can provide. Everyone's a little different in how they want to be supported, and just having those conversations, being able to step up to have those conversations is important. It's Asian Heritage Month. Talk to me a little bit about what that means to you guys, and how, what your thoughts and your ideas are behind that. Ruth, I'll start with you.
It's important that we do recognize our heritage, and that we're proud of it. Definitely growing up here, I tried to fit in, and I tried to be like, quote, more westernized, just so I wouldn't be seen as like this different person and just like be treated differently. But I think growing up, I just realized how important it was that I am proud of my heritage, and I do let like who I am show through. Almost like a lot of my heritage is shaped who I am today, right? Like a lot of our big worth ethics and just our values are so shaped within our culture, and just like our upbringing, and just hearing the struggles that our parents had to go through to even bring us here. It really does play a role in who we are. And I think even professionally, just bringing in ideas from our culture can really drastically improve the way we work with our athletes, our patients, and our treatment plans. Like, because I am I have a dual profession, right? I have Western medicine and Eastern medicine. Just mixing the two, I've noticed like a drastic increase in effectiveness, and just like prolonged effect just by blending the two. And I'm proud of that. Like, I'm proud that I can use both to work together to achieve a goal, right? To help our athletes, to help our patients. It's just better care. And that's ultimately what we want to do, right? We want to do what we know is best for our patients. So if I'm able to blend both, why not, right? So that the care is just so much better in that aspect.
I love that. Paul, talk to me a little bit, just a little bit about what this means to you as well. I don't know if you can follow up what Ruth said.
I think it's perfect. I mean, I don't want to, I hate to be like talking for all Asians, because it's a huge area to talk about, and then there's so differences between the different Asian communities. But I think growing up myself as a Japanese Canadian, it's a little bit different, just because we've really been taught to stay away and assimilate, with the Western world or wherever you are. That's why you don't see a lot of Japantowns across Canada and whatnot. It's because really after the war and the internship, they took all those places, so you couldn't congregate. They weren't allowed to be together. So they, you talked to a lot of Asian or Japanese Canadians today, and sometimes they won't even say, "Oh, I haven't really noticed any Asian hate towards me or anything like that." It's because they, been told, we're kind of conditioned to not rock the boat. A lot of Asians are like that too, and that's it leads into the next model minority sort of thing, where it's a double-edged sword. You say something, oh, you're being combative, whatnot. You don't say anything, oh, they don't mind it, that's fine, so it's difficult. So like these Asian heritage times are nice because it's a kind of a safe time to celebrate your own culture and your race, and hopefully that these can keep developing and more Asians can come out and be truly feel safe, outside of these months.
That's great. And that just shows how much education that we really need in terms of the language and how we're communicating with everyone. And such a great point that obviously, Asia is not just one group of people.
Right.
We're kind of lumping a little bit together here, but everyone's culture is important. And of course, that's what Canada really is and Ontario really is. So I think this has been really important. And I think as athletic therapists, this is how we can help work together and build a really strong membership and a really strong support system. Ruth, you said that we're a small community, really. So especially in Ontario. So this is important. This is such important stuff. Thank you so much for both of you for joining us today and taking the time to talk to us about how we can lift each other up, hold space for each other, and honor each other's importance. This is Jen Mark for Buzzcast podcast for the Ontario Athletic Therapists Association. Have a great day, everyone.